Stuart, thanks very much for joining us on our latest Digital Diaries session. Here we're just looking to check in with CNC and to see how things are progressing from your perspective. So to start with, can you tell us where you are on your digital journey and how much you've done to date?
Yeah, of course, Ian. CNC, we've been quite busy for a number of years now. Our digital revolution, as you might want to call it, started about 6 years ago. And ever since then, we're progressing on a number of formats towards that kind of digital solution. In regards to telecare, we made the switch about 2.5-3 years ago for some of our sites, and we've now got a program of works that will take us through to that all-important 25 digital shut-off.
And you say that you started 2 to 3 years ago. That's fairly early in terms of housing organisations. So what was the driver behind CNC being one of those leading lights?
Well, about 7 years ago, we actually had a new corporate strategy, and underpinning that, we had a new digital strategy. And I think part of that is one of the reasons why we did the early adoption, but it's also one of the reasons for our success. The next 10 years within IT technology is going to be the most important time for human development in the course of human evolution since they discovered fire in the wheel. You're going to see more adoption and more technical change over these next 10 years than at any other point now, or probably in the future. And in order to be prepared for that, we had a technical strategy that underpinned the deliverables of certain key services. And that was obviously before COVID, but was a direct result of sort of funding cuts and sector cuts across the board, really. And they've only increased since then. So for us, it was about being able to know that the facilities and services we were putting in would be future-proof of a sort, but also be able to offer up all these new range digital services through the common infrastructure that every business is going to have to replace anyway.
One of the things I really wanted to talk to you about was how CNC have reacted to the situation over the last 12 to 18 months in terms of COVID and the pandemic, and how has technology supported you through that, and what have been your learnings that you'll take forward?
For all housing associations and any organisations who are involved in primary, secondary or tertiary care, it's been a really hard time during COVID. I feel that we haven't suffered as much as some other places through some of our technological innovation. So quite a lot of the sterilisation facilities are automated. Quite a lot of the resident contact, so whether that's visitors coming in or staff and things coming in, was all quite heavily controlled and monitored anyway. And that said, we weren't hit as bad in the first outbreak. That said, there is a clear, distinct difference. As I said, we're on part of a journey here. Not all of our estates have been fitted with digital technology. So there's a marked difference in how some residents were able to keep connected and operate as opposed to others. And I think that was probably the biggest learning curve, is that although you might have some very good plans in preparation, you might have some sites that have very good preparation facilities, you're always going to have those sites, in a 5 or 10 year program that are going to lag behind. And I think our learning from the period was that you have to make sure that when you don't have these digital solutions in place, that your manual solutions are a lot more robust and able to deal with larger inconveniences.
Obviously, loneliness, as far as I'm aware, was and tackling it was a high priority and on the agenda for CNC prior to COVID and the pandemic anyway. Are there learnings that you're going to be taking forward?
Yeah, most definitely. So, loneliness or combating loneliness rather, is one of our key drivers. Our age demographic here is predominantly is all over the age of 65, with the majority being in their sort of like high 70s or 80s. So, as a population group in society, it's one of the groups most susceptible to being cut off, feelings of isolation and loneliness. Like I said, part of that is having this new digital strategy for digital offering. So some of the things we're looking forward to in the future is being able to use facilities such as games and things like that can be played throughout the group. Things like group rounds of bingo, but played from people's individual homes. But during the pandemic, the ability for people to talk and communicate with others in other rooms, having that video conversation as well, was really important for some residents because they were able to keep those relationships alive. Whereas some people in some places where they live, or wherever who lived, we couldn't go out. At the same time, they were able to maintain those relationships and even, tell stories, sing songs and that kind of stuff, which is wonderful to think of when a simple piece of technology can provide that link in a time of like global panic. I was actually really impressed.
So there's a few learnings there, but I guess in terms of your overall project, in terms of especially around digital telecare, what have been the learnings which you would share with others who are starting out on their journey?
Yes, there's several things really. So some of the advice that we've given, we also tend to speak like TAPI, which is the technology equivalent of like the HAPPY guidelines in housing, is you have to think big. So a lot of this work has to be done by 2025. There's a key date there. But at the same time, you've got to think about what your service provision is going to be like in year 3, year 5, year 10, because you're laying the groundwork and the foundation for that now. So although you do have to do this work, it's always best to keep an eye on the future and where you want to go to make sure that you're taking that path of lowest cost to get to where you want to be at the end. Like with any technology can be expensive, but as long as you're making the right procurement decision, you actually end up saving money. It's only the wrong procurement decision that will cost you money. Times have changed, and in the last 10 years, you've seen a real change in lots of type of equipment, not just call warden and digital door entry, but now actually are pretty much a mini computer that's being plugged to the wall and then needs to talk and operate to lots of other equipment, whether that's with your vendor, whether that's with your own IT internal staff, whether that's just with another site. This sort of stuff is going to be so much more important in the next 10 years. But now, for anyone doing this work, that's what you need to consider. There's real value in taking those things from the part of your business that traditionally look at them and moving to them so you're part of your business that have that technical oversight. The third one that I'll probably add in terms of service definition is and it may sound a little bit cheesy, but it's to dream big. There's lots of things that are possible now that were not possible 5 years ago. All you need to be able to provide these really groundbreaking services, or even just outstanding, never failing standard services, is to know a little bit about the technology that's out there and where that's going. And that information, if you don't have it in-house in your own organisations, is quite easy to provide. And organisations, like Appello, are able to provide that technical expertise to make sure that you're able to fulfil whatever that service offering is going to look like in those 5 and 10 years that we talked about.
Stuart, I know you're always thinking big. So what's the future for CNC? What's your vision?
So at CNC, we've got some quite exciting ideas going forwards. So one of the things we want to do with our service offering is to be able to look at incorporating biometrics into it. So, a simple wrist-worn device will be able to provide biometric feedback data, pulse rate, oxygen saturation, these sorts of services. We're then working with several local authorities in the London area with their GP consortiums to be able to provide the data back to them. So what we're hoping for is a kind of three-way system with the local NHS and PCTs, the GP consortiums and the local GP surgery, and us being able to provide and share that medical data to be able to provide a real service wrap of sheltered living, but at the same time without being intrusive to the individual. And one of the key drivers is, we want to keep people in their own homes for longer.
Excellent. It's really exciting times, and I think if we could check in with you again in 12 months' time to see how things are progressing, that'd be really useful. For now, I just want to say thank you. I think you've given some great insight that others will find really valuable. And yeah, really appreciate your time, Stuart. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks a lot, Ian.